So I've got different hats. I was at Microsoft for 15 years. I was part of Microsoft Research, and I was part of a team that used to be called Red Dog, which I will not make a contest, and nobody will know what that means. It's called today Microsoft Azure. We were 6 people in a room trying to figure out what to do with that project and how to sell it. That was 13 years ago. And so my main activity professionally is to incubate new businesses, cloud, AI, etc. I happen to have been advising a private bank in Brazil for the last 3 years. So we brought a lot of innovation from Israel, from the US, from different parts of the world. I also engage with different accelerators and VCs. So I mentor and judge a few startup contests. So what I'll do again, this was supposed to add up to 60, so I made it fit in 15. So bear with me. I want to give a super quick overview on AI in financial services. Now, really quick, I will jump into the good, bad, ugly, again, in a very condensed way. And then, so I think that because the level of sugar is going down in the blood, that I'm closer to the alcoholic part of the event. So I will just give you real-life examples just to illustrate, and I'm happy to talk later or next week on Zoom or whatever when you want about that. This was supposed to be a joke. I used to use this slide as a joke, but now it's not really a joke. There is a context to what I will say. It's really based on my experience in 20 years. I'm not representing Microsoft, Banco BV, any entity. I've basically worked with lots and lots of CTOs, CEOs, Ph.Ds, and investors, and this is kind of my own take of certain things. So, fasten your seatbelt. That's a real helicopter. I'm not a pilot. If you get me on WhatsApp, I have a uniform of the Israeli Air Force. I'm not really a pilot. But this is, again, my trajectory doesn't really matter so much. I highlighted some interesting things. But the main thing that I tell people is that was my aha moment. I did a keynote in 2016 in Jordan when I returned to Microsoft. And I was building a digital transformation team and blah, blah, blah. And that was the, if everyone heard of the imposter syndrome, that's the moment where I was going on stage, 800 people, and I realized, I'm not sure if I would say actually makes any sense, but I'll say anyways. And then I turned around and I saw Michael Jordan coming up with his statistics of how many times he failed. And I realized, well, maybe if I try some things and it doesn't work, that would be fine. And this is kind of a little bit of a theme of what we'll talk about today. This is me when I had more hair. This is in 2004. I was sitting in Redmond, starting my journey at Microsoft. And this is Bill Gates in exactly the same month, March 2004, saying if we come with a breakthrough in AI in 10 years, if you come with a breakthrough in AI, Microsoft will be worth 10 times what it's worth. Now, you can go back on Google or Bingo, whatever, and find out what was the valuation of Microsoft in 2004, but that's kind of a major thing, right? That doesn't happen every day. And so this is the other thing that I encountered on the internet. He spoke, and I'll give you the answer already. It was actually 10 years before. He said, banking is essential, but banks, not quite really. And that's one of the things that inspired me to give this talk. Again, many of you know that, but I just looked at it recently. I was talking to actually a board member in a bank, and he was sharing me that actually in Brazil those numbers are a bit higher than that. But this is overall struggle, right? Banking is becoming not such a very profitable business as any other business. Maybe they need to look some innovation in order to make up for that. Again, there is all of you are in Fintech. I happen to be in Israel for the last 7 years, and I was in different countries before. This is kind of an evolution from 2015 till 2022 or 3, right? You can see just the maturity of the ecosystem, so many areas within the fintech space, so many exits and M&As and so on. So what I wanted to do is give you a 30 seconds overview just to say ChatGPT and all this magic did not happen overnight, okay? For those who woke up and said, oh my God, where did it come from? So this started in the 50s. The major breakthrough was actually in, 1995, LeCun, for those who don't know, is the Meta AI head of research, a very controversial guy, fun guy to monitor on social media, very controversial statements. But the real thing happened in 2017 when Google published a paper called attention is all you need. You can Google it. It's on Google, obviously, and you can read it. But the point here is most people come to me, and I spent most of my career in healthcare, in Microsoft Research, and now more recently in Fintech. And people say health and Fintech are the ones who will be the last to adopt those things. Come on, man, there's data privacy. And I don't need to list all the risks and all the concerns and all the reasons your legal guy, your privacy security guy will say, well, that's kind of dodgy. But those are the actual two areas where, not so surprisingly, they see actually the real importance of machine learning, AI, and all those things. Now, the question is the how. As I said, this is a 50-year journey. It's not a 12-month journey. But the last 5 years, I would say, actually, since I resigned from Microsoft in 2019, some revolution happens. And the pace of change is way faster. And I'm saying that because even people like me who live and breathe AI, this is what I do for a living, I work in AI, I'm getting a Ph.D. in AI, I work with AI startups, you can't keep up, a Microsoft alumni, you can't keep up with so many changes. So again, I'll give you a very, very quick flight. But historically, you had this whole thing, which I won't lecture you on now, which is called symbolic AI, and you had to program specific business rules, et cetera, et cetera. And then we started to move into this thing that sounded like science fiction that says, maybe we should emulate the way we think. We are so smart and so proud of being so intelligent. Maybe we can come up with this thing called neural networks and deep learning, and Google acquired this company that was doing this kind of thing as well. And maybe we can try to emulate the way we think. Disclaimer for those who like science, we actually don't know exactly how we think, how our brain works, right? But that's the aspiration. And so, again, quickly, what are the real things that happen behind the scenes? Why are we all now amazed with ChatGPT and LLMs, and this became the whole hype? One, data, right? So when we talk about AI, machine learning, you can talk about it for hours. It all starts with data, right? So we all inundated with data. We just don't know what to do with that data, how to organize the data, and so on. But that's growing exponentially. Like we have open finance, we have so many ways to find data today. So that's one thing. The second is architecture. I won't get into that. I'm a software engineer. I'm not a guy in hardware. But a lot has happened, again, in terms of the computing power that we have today. Just high-performance computing, parallelization, GPUs. I mean, there's quite a gazillion things. I won't get into that now. But the things that, and I'll give you an example in the end, which means in 7 minutes, the amount of things that we can do today, thanks to those things, were things that were in the academia for 20 years and were just a philosophical exercise. So again, out of all the things we can talk about, there is one thing, hopefully, that you'll remember when you're having a drink tonight. The main challenge in AI is actually quite similar to the main challenge of us human beings in society. It's what? Education. How do you get trained? What do you learn? From school, from your community, from whoever, right? We are who we are, but we're very influenced by what information we consume, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the main challenge in AI. How do I get a perfect training data set, right? People talk about bias, people talk about a lot of things. The reality is, how do we get to that? It's not a very trivial answer. So, again, I'm going to really fly through this. The only point of illustrating this is you can pretty much today, with the boom of generative AI, not just do all these crazy, amazing things you can do in ChatGPT, but you could actually, for every line in your income statement, you could actually use generative AI to either increase your revenue or lower your cost. Okay? I'll leave it at there, and we can dive if we had time. The second thing is, what are actually people doing with AI and machine learning? And again, here we have to say that the two main areas are product innovation, right? For those, I started my career as product manager. To do product innovation is super hard, how to gather info, insights, and all that. So that's one thing the large language models gave us. The second is customer experience. But there's many, many case scenarios that we're not going to have time to cover. So let's talk about some good, bad, ugly things. I won't talk about them. You guys go on Google or Bing or your favorite browser, and you see, wow, shall AI hijack us and take us to Mars? And how deepfakes will inundate the web? And I say it's ironically, of course, many of these questions are genuine questions, right? The answer is actually we don't know. But many of them are kind of one side of the coin only, right? So for example, the job market, we'll talk a little bit about it. Yes, many jobs will be eliminated, many jobs will be created. So for all those questions, there's technically bias. Bias, I like to say, it's not an AI problem, it's a societal problem. We all bias here. So again, those are themes that come there. If we have time, we will address later. But again, as any invention, they can be used for the good or for the bad. I can use AI to save lives, and many, many companies are doing that. Or I can use AI to scam, right? So nothing new here. It's sort of what do you do with it? But again, I won't get to the whole philosophy here, but where there is darkness and you light a candle, then you get light. So you can also use AI to actually do fraud detection. You can actually use AI in order to drive unbiased set of data. So again, it really depends on the governments, depends on everything you'll do. So, the good and bad are usually kind of side by side, depending on that. Which is why, in my personal opinion, after reading 20 books on this topic, those are the two ones that came to me, and they're very different books. The one on the right, or on your right, is a book written by my Wharton professor. He's very famous, you can follow him. But it talks about how human intelligence and machine intelligence actually coexist, right? And this is a great example. It's part of the AI for Business course at Wharton. The right one has nothing to do with AI, but actually tells us a lot about why some of these bad things happen, which have to do with our moral compass. And so, here's the part where I give you real-life examples. The first one is, let's talk about bias, inequality, and all the things that people will probably blame AI for. And here's an example how you can use AI exactly to address those problems. So here's one company that actually took to a conference in Brazil. They're doing a lot of work with some banks in Brazil that figure out, the CEO here is an Israeli guy, lived 7 years in Africa, built the first digital bank, and he realized that if we apply AI and psychology, you can actually solve a lot of the challenges that emerging markets have. So for example, most people who are called thin-filed, or people who basically don't have much history, they're not necessarily bad customers. They simply have no transactional history. So for the classic model that we've been using in credit scoring for 20 years, these people will just be rejected, not because, again, we have bad information on them, it's just because you have no intelligence on them. But how about we actually think about it in a different way? Everything you see, whether you paid your bills or didn't pay your bills, is the what you did. Now, what's the why? What made you not pay, right? So the why sometimes is more important than the what. And here what they do is basically combining all these technologies to analyze how you actually use your applications. Now, there's nothing dodgy about copying your password or whatever. Every information that they collect is things that you're actually comfortable sharing, but by the way you actually organize your photos or whatever, they will not get access to your photo itself, but by the metadata, they can kind of understand whether you're a person that's more impulsive, more reliable, and there's 1,000 different variables that are organized to kind of give you a new credit score, the credit score based on the why. Another example, we talked a little bit about generative AI, is that we can use, again, going back to our challenge, how do I get to train a model perfectly? And the challenge here is, it's super hard, right? I could go here for 20 minutes on all the reasons why it's hard, but just to call out, data scientists are expensive, are hard to find, and by the way, they're human beings, right? They can test a few different options, they can't really optimize eternally a problem. So there is a high failure rate on AI projects when they put them in production. This is data available anywhere. So the real question is, if AI is so powerful, maybe AI could solve its own problem. I know it sounds like a philosopher question, and it is, but the reality is it's not philosophy, right? We decided in 2019 that if AI can generate content, for example, pictures or text, maybe AI could generate AI, right? Why not? We generate people, right? We have people who generate people, so maybe that's possible. By the way, this is based on biology and etc. So here again, very quickly, there is a specific algorithm that I won't explain you because I have 20 seconds officially. But actually what it does is it shows you that there are 200 or 300 tools out there, right? From a data scientist, there is no shortage of tools for infrastructure, for analytics, for this, for that. Some of them are paid licenses, some of them are open source tools. Seriously, there is an infinity of things that I can choose, libraries, everything that I need theoretically is out there. The question is, how do I know what's going to work best for my specific criteria, for my specific data? So what people do, we're humans, right? We try. We go and we pick up this and we pick up that and we build an AI pipeline and we do things and then it doesn't work and then we try again and we pick a different way and we keep trying. until our boss says the deadline is 5 p.m. on Friday. So are you done or not? So you have to be done, right? So you're done. But we get to the 75% of failure. So here's an alternative. Here's the Mona Lisa. Now, none of us know how to draw the Mona Lisa. Maybe somebody here, I don't. So what we do with genetic algorithm is we say, we actually don't know how to get to the Mona Lisa, but you can define what a Mona Lisa look like in a simple language, okay? And I can actually run a model based on genetic algorithm that will create initially random formations that sort of resemble the Mona Lisa, and they look terrible in the beginning, but they're not all equally terrible. So what I will do is use all this computing power, and I'm going to run millions, sometimes billions of possible combinations until I get to the one based on the criteria that I decided that actually looks better based on my definition of goodness, right? What's the criteria I can define? So this is a mathematical model. It's been proven academically. It's the most optimal chance of getting to the accuracy you want. But again, it was in university books, and now it's actually a platform that we actually use for very critical projects with the army, with hospitals, and so on in Israel. Okay? So that's the global optimum. And I'm in the red now, so I will get to the conclusion. We don't know what we don't know, right? But we need to understand the rules of the game. So when people talk about how do I think about AI as an investor, for example, well, I won't go through this whole slide, but you can see that there is very different layers over here. There's a foundational layer, which is basically the infrastructure. You have a kind of an enablement layer, and you have the applications that all of you actually know. So there's many, forecasts there, but it skipped through that. And so I wanted to wrap up by saying, again, the risk is not on the things that we know that we don't know. The risk is on the things we actually don't know that we don't know. And again, that's not pure philosophy. That's part of what we need to actually keep in mind. And in my experience, those are the three things I learned. First, for those who don't know, there was this emotional intelligence and all these things. Now we have the adaptability coefficient. Everything I knew 2 years ago is probably changed, and I'll give you one example before we finish. Those are, again, some books. For those who don't know, that's Daniel Kahneman. He's a Nobel Prize winner. He wrote his book, Thinking Fast and Slow, which I strongly recommend. It's a very dense book. And then Daniel Liel is an Israeli scientist, professor at Duke. And he actually did an amazing work with this book, Predictably Irrational, that proves that everything I learned in my M.B.A. on macroeconomics was wrong and useless, and showed that human beings are less rational than we think we are. So we ended up working with them, with Banco BV, and coming up with ways to actually change the behavior of people through, again, behavioral science. So in summary, this is, this quote is actually not from a philosopher, it's from Spider-Man. But we have some responsibility to do that. And again, the main challenge is when we try to address those problems, we try to address them with the same mindset we had when we actually created them. So we need to start thinking differently. And obviously, innovation comes with a price, right? So we don't want to lose our money in trading. We don't want to die in a surgery. But we need to take some calculated risks, and there are ways to do that so that we can actually test and innovate. So that's it. I did the best to get you, not out of here because I'm sitting on a panel, so you have to see more, but to finish on time. If you have any questions, comments, feedback, you can hit me up. I don't know if I have time for questions, but thank you. And